So a bunch of you wanted to hear more about pioneering women scammers. You're going to love my new segment, Women in Scam, Science, Crime, and Math. And I'm all out of science and math. Let's start out with a giant of crime, the Cheryl Swoops of scams, the woman who did the first modern Ponzi scheme years before Ponzi's parents even schemed to conceive. The year is 1869. Nice. The city is Munich, and the woman is Adele Spitzeder, a retired actor with no criminal history. She's stopped acting because, according to her, she was so good it made everybody else jealous, which is exactly the kind of soul-searching analysis you get when you let con artists write autobiographies. She was trying to make enough money to support her girlfriend and 6 dogs, so she decided to start a fraudulent bank. She promised to pay people 10% interest a month, and apparently she was good enough at acting to seem trustworthy. Money flooded in, and she used that money to pay other investors, and boom, the modern Ponzi scheme is born. She also did a lot of other things that modern rich men do, like buying up newspapers and forcing them to print nice things, and dating much younger women by promising to help their acting careers. Today's creeps don't even realize they're standing on the shoulders of creepy giants. One thing that was different about her scheme is she didn't pretend to have a good business model. And I know that makes it sound like it was obviously a scam, but you gotta remember, she invented this. It was not technically fraud yet because they hadn't thought to put that in the laws until she did it. When she was finally arrested for stealing the modern equivalent of $500 million, they charged her with poor record keeping. If there was any justice in the world, it wouldn't be called a Ponzi scheme. It'd be called a Spitzeder swindle. It's more fair and also more alliterative. Instead, she's largely forgotten because in our society, badly behaved women also rarely make history. One of the most interesting con artists of all time has got to be Big Bertha, the confidence queen. Let's learn about this force of criminal nature in another episode of my series, Women in Scam, Science, Crime, and Math. And I'm a little short on time, so let's skip the science and math. Bertha conned businessmen across the US in the late 1800s. She got arrested numerous times, but that didn't slow her down. She once conned a man from jail into giving her several $1,000s that she used to bribe the warden. And later, when she was on trial, she conned her own lawyer. Everyone's got to have a code, and hers was ABC, always be conning. Her main swindle was telling people that she was very rich, but then finding a reason why they needed to give her a few $1,000s. Like, oh, my suitcase full of money is stuck on a boat, and I need to pay the captain off. Can I borrow $1,000? Every Nigerian prince owes a debt to the confidence queen. She was also a pioneer in cashing in a showbiz career when she got tired of doing crimes. In 1889, she starred in a touring show where she told stories of her life of crime, and then, to fill time, acted in Shakespeare scenes with a guy named Oofty Goofty the Human Punching Bag, and then wrestled members of the audience. We used to do entertainment different in this country. You can keep your prestige TV. I want to watch Big Bertha beat up audience members. And then one day while she was on tour, she pulled her manager aside and confided in him that she still had several $1,000s worth of stolen money and stocks and stuff in a secret pocket inside her suitcase, and she was afraid of getting caught with it, and would he like to buy it? And you guys, he bought the suitcase. He believed her and paid her money for the suitcase. I don't have to tell you the suitcase was empty. Of course the suitcase was empty. This is the queen we're talking about. It doesn't matter that she's gone straight or that this man is literally helping her career. Always be conning. A lot of things were invented or perfected by women who didn't get enough credit for them, and one of those things is the Ocean's 11 heist. Barbara Erni did it 300 years before George Clooney did it. Let's find out more about Barbara in another episode of Women in Scam, Science, Crime, and Math. And I took too much time with that intro, so we're gonna have to skip the science and math. We don't know much about Barbara's life except she was born on the streets. She was the last person executed in Liechtenstein, and between those two, she robbed dozens and dozens of inns using a big box and a little man. Liechtenstein today is a small mountainous tax haven with more registered companies than citizens, but in the 1700s it was positively tiny with only about 4,000 people and a similar number of cows and oxen, which makes it even more surprising that a legend would rise there. Here's how the con would work. Barbara would travel from town to town with a large ornate trunk strapped to her back like a crime Sherpa. She was beautiful and also strong like a Liechtenstein oxen. She claimed that the trunk was full of valuables, so when she got to a new town, she'd go to the inn and say, I need you to store this in your most secure room. So they would put it in a room with the other valuables. And hers didn't have any treasure in it. What it had was a guy, just a little guy. She just had a little crime boy that she carried around in a backpack, and then they would wait till everyone went to sleep, and then he would pop out and do some night stealing. I love this con because it's got so many risks. Like, what if somebody puts a box on top of your little guy? What if he sneezes? What if he has to use the bathroom at some point? Like, there's so many ways you can get caught, and they managed to do this for 15 years. And the story goes, they only got caught because she got too wealthy, and people were like, it's weird that you have this much money. Which brings us to a lesson for young girls aspiring to a career in scam, and that is KISS. Keep it simple, scammer. 3 young sisters pranking their mom accidentally set off the spiritualism craze of the 1800s. Let's learn more about the Fox sisters in another episode of my hit series, Women in Scam, Science, Crime, and Math. And I'm all out of science and math. People in the 1800s loved talking to spirits, and one of their favorite ways was the seance. Everybody sits around a spooky table, and for ghost reasons, people who have crossed over can only communicate with the living through a series of weird magic tricks that could only be interpreted by the person charging you money to be at the seance. Weird. Among the innovators in this grift were the Fox sisters. They lived in a house that was purported to be haunted, and the two youngest girls told their mom that they figured out they could talk to the ghosts in the house, and the ghosts would respond with a series of unworldly knocking sounds that sounded suspiciously like a teenage girl cracking her toe knuckle on the wooden floor. It worked too well, with their parents eventually digging up the basement floor looking for bodies because that's what the ghost clicks told them to do. But the eldest Fox sister couldn't hear the ghost noises over the sound of ka-ching. She insisted on becoming the girls' manager and trotting them out in public and in seances to commune with the dead for money. That kicked off years of ghost fraud, and they remained among the most famous mediums in the genre. But then they dealt their own scam a death blow when they publicly admitted they'd been faking it the whole time. And they didn't do that because of a pang of consciousness or because a ghost told them to. They did it because a journalist offered them the equivalent of $50,000 to come clean. Either they were fraudulent mediums or they scammed one journalist out of $50,000. Either way, they are worthy inductees into the Women in Scam Hall of Fame. And they probably also belong in the Guinness Book of World Records for people who have made the most money cracking their toe knuckles. It's time to talk about one of the most famous tech startup scams of all time, and also, I believe, the only person to ever face consequences for white-collar crime, Elizabeth Holmes. She faked medical tests and a deep voice, which is more than enough to earn her a place in my regular series, Women in Scam, Science, Crime, and Math, and she's really focused on those first two letters. Lizzie Holmes was a prodigy. She got her first patent at 19 and was named the youngest female billionaire at 30. She was also indicted for massive fraud at 33, and that's really impressive. Bernie Madoff didn't do that until his 70s. But also, her dad was a VP at Enron, so she was kind of a fraud nepo baby. And the fact that it's not possible didn't stop her from saying they were doing it all the time, which is what makes her such a role model for young women. She was raising money under false pretenses, which is normally a male-dominated field. The weirdest thing that Eliza did is face consequences. Sure, she gave terrible medical advice to people, but ChatGPT does that every day. She lied to investors, but Elon has done that almost as many times as he's retweeted Nazi memes. And everything about her persona was affected, but if anybody would go to jail for that, it should be Mark Zuckerberg. If we lived in one of the timelines that had justice, she would be playing prison poker with Elon, Mark, and Sam right now, and somehow they would all lose. And in her defense, while her company did hurt a lot of innocent people, when it went under, it also cost Henry Kissinger, Rupert Murdoch, and Betsy DeVos a ton of money. So there was some good that came of it. Lizzo Holmes, welcome to the Women in Scam Hall of Fame.